Brains. Brains. Num 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 num.
Alien Resurrection, released in 1997 and directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, hope I pronounced the name correctly, is the, for some, final film in the Alien franchise, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Alien Resurrection, like its predecessors, is a science fiction horror film surrounding a creature, an alien life form, which is, oh, that's me getting a message, is particularly nasty and tends to off people in a very cruel and grotesque ways. So Alien Resurrection takes place 200 years after Alien 3. Obviously everybody's long gone by this point. It's 200 years afterwards, and it is set in the way distant future. Now, Ripley, the main character from the previous three films, is in this film, and the way they get her into the film is that Ripley has been cloned. She's been cloned from blood samples that they had from Alien 3, and mild spoiler alert, the Ripley character was carrying a Queen alien at the time. So they've got these blood samples, and on this ship, this spaceship, huge spaceship, out in the deep space, a military organisation have got their hands on blood samples from that time, and they've been able to clone Ripley from those blood samples, and not only clone Ripley, but actually clone Ripley with a full alien Queen embryo growing in her chest, and then they're able to take it out of her through surgery. So the film takes place on this ship, the ship Auriga, I think it's called, and not only is this Ripley a clone of her former self, but because of the cloning process, she's actually inherited some of the alien aspects from the alien creature, of the alien creature. So for example, she now has an empathy with the alien creature, which is a direct contrast to the Ripley character from the previous films, because she didn't really have that empathy for them. She hated them, wanted them destroyed because they were so dangerous. She's also inherited some of the alien abilities. Her blood is very acidic. She's faster, more agile. Just in general, she's more than human, and she seems to be able to somehow detect the sort of hive-like mind of the alien as well. And this is even reflected in the clothes that she wears. She wears this outfit which is reminiscent of the alien exoskeleton. So that is the main idea, the main premise of the film, this main conceit. And then what the military organisation on the ship have done is they've kept this Ripley character alive because out of interest, scientific interest. So they're sort of keeping her there and observing her and seeing what traits from the alien she's inherited, etc. At the same time, there is also this sort of synthetic alien hive on this military ship, where they have the alien queen there, and the alien queen has laid loads of eggs. Now what's happened is that the military ship obviously needs human bodies to allow those eggs to produce a face hugger, which will then jump on the human body and plant a seed inside them so an alien can gestate and then burst out. So the way that they're doing that is they've actually hired mercenaries who, they don't really know why they're doing what they're doing, but they've been hired to hijack ships or transport ships where there are passengers who are in hypersleep while they're going long distances through space. And what they do is that a ship called the Betty, her crew, which is a sort of ragtag bunch of mercenaries, they have captured this bunch of people in hypersleep. They're completely unaware of what's happening to them because they're in cryogenic suspension, and they then give them to this military ship for money, those people are then put into the hive and attacked by facehuggers, and then more aliens are produced for that. So there are already a few aliens kicking around. So you've got that going on. You have got this mercenary group now staying on the ship for a short time while they refuel, etc. And you've got the military command and the scientists there observing the alien hive and trying to understand how intelligent they actually are. Now, of course, at some point the shit's going to hit the fan, and that's exactly what happens. At some point the aliens escape, and really the military aspect of this ship gets all but wiped out, or many of them leave on life pods. This leaves Ripley and the mercenaries and a couple of other survivors on the ship, drifting in space. Now, what they realise is that the Auriga, the ship that they're on, has a sort of defence mechanism whereby if something terrible happens and the command centre is knocked out for the ship, as happens here, the ship will automatically set course for Earth. So they know now that this ship is going to go to Earth, and the aliens and the alien queen would then be able to run riot on Earth. So they have sort of like, obviously the main thing is they want to get out alive, but they have this thing about wanting to save the human race as well. You know, the possibility of it, of these aliens running riot, although everybody has different ideas about what they really should or should not be doing. The rest of the film then plays out as the surviving crew attempt to escape. They're trying to get to like their own sort of shuttle to get out of there, but everything's sort of been shut down on the ship, and they're being chased by the alien creatures throughout the ship. So that's the plot, without too many major spoilers. And it sounds on the face of it like an interesting idea, but this film is racked with a great many problems. But before we really get into it, we should really start talking about, you know, the actors and the direction, etc. So first of all, the actors are actually all very good. There are a whole bunch of great actors in this film. You've got Sigourney Weaver, you've got, you know, a lot of people don't like Winona Ryder, but, you know, I think when you look at things like Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, etc., you know, I think she is a capable actress. You've got Ron Perlman, who's a real favourite of mine in the cast, and you also have a French element from the director Jeunet, that he's brought into not just the cast but also the crew as well. So the performances are all really pretty good. You know, there's I don't think there's anybody that's particularly, you know, really weak. I would actually say if anyone was slightly weak on it, it may be Winona Ryder, but I don't really think that's her fault. I think that's more the fact that I think she was slightly miscast. There's a point in the film where you find out certain things about her, and you should realise that she should really be world weary, and I think maybe she was just too young at that point to really play that. But, you know, on the whole, the cast are, you know, they're very good, they're solid. The direction as well is actually, for the most part, very good. Now, the director is very capable, and what's really interesting about this film is that the director was brought on board in a similar fashion to the three previous directors, Ridley Scott, James Cameron and David Fincher. They were all directors who had a unique visual style. If you look at Ridley Scott's work, you know, he's just an incredible visualist. You look at James Cameron. I think if you look at, you know, at the films he was doing at the time, you look at The Terminator and you look at Aliens, The Abyss. You know, I think he's definitely got his own thing going on there. And you look at David Fincher, you look at Alien 3, and you can see the same visual style was then employed in films like Seven. So they all had a real strong visual sense. And Jean-Pierre Jeunet is exactly the same. Now, he's directed films like City of Lost Children, Amelia, Delicatessen. He's got a real strong sense of the way the visuals should play out in a film, and you know, that's to its credit. So there is a lot of that in the film, but there's some real problems with it. One of the biggest problems we have, and it's something that Alien 3 struggled from as well, is that some of the visual effects that they tried to use to create the alien creature just weren't up to par to the first two films. Especially the CG aliens that you have in this film really don't cut the mustard in certain places. And you know, I think they wanted to show the alien in all its glory, which you can kind of understand, you know, sort of moving around and, you know, wide shots of the alien. But, you know, it doesn't work when you're trying to create a creature which is frightening. You have to get in close, you have to only see moments, and then you've got to leave it up to the audience's mind to sort of put it together. It's very brown, and there's a lot of greens in there as well. I think that the tone of the film, the visual tone of the film, is quite striking. And it is effective, and in a way it's kind of a shame, because you watch it and you think sort of what if, what could it have been. But the thing that differentiates Jeunet from the three previous directors is that Jeunet went in there and said, right, you know, I'm a French director who sort of is used to sort of doing his own thing. You've hired me to come in and do a Hollywood picture. He said, do you know what, I'm going to do what you want me to do. You know, I'm going to try and facilitate the studio. You tell me what you want out of this picture and I will give you it, right? Rather than what Ridley Scott did and James Cameron did and David Fincher attempted to do, which was do what they felt was right, which was often, you know, the complete opposite of what the studio or what the producers wished. So Jeunet didn't, you know, he approached the film differently, and I think, you know, that is to his credit, but I think the film suffers a great deal from that. I think that there are a lot of, you know, really interesting shots in the film. There's some great shots where the camera's sort of swooping over the top of, you know, the head of characters, and some of that strange skewed cinematography that you get with some of Jeunet's other films. But I think he used you know, let's say many of the crew, and I think the cinematographer was used from some of his previous projects as well. So there is that element of style, which is it's good to see, because each of the four Alien films are all visually very different. Tonally, they're all very different as well. So that is if you wanted a film that was different from the previous three films, you got it. You did get it. But here's the big problem. The big problem is it's not a horror film. See, even Alien 3 attempted to be frightening in places, and I don't believe that Alien Resurrection attempted that at all. I mean, I don't think it tried to be scary. What you have is a very, very peculiar film, because you have a film that is essentially, you know, quite a big budget sort of action fare, which is really a black comedy, and that's what sets it apart from the rest of the franchise. But it sets it apart from the franchise too much. It's too much of a departure. You know, you sort of essentially change the genre of what the piece is, and I think because it's sort of black comedy, a lot of people didn't really get it at the time. I think a lot of people still don't really get that that's what it is. The funny thing is, I don't think it was written to be a black comedy in any way, shape or form. I think that's just Jeunet's sensibilities. He wanted to inject a bit of humour, but he wanted to inject a very European sense of humour into the film, and I think that's what he did. But it overshadows everything else that goes on, and like I say, because of the wide shots of the aliens and a whole bunch of other stuff going on, it's just not frightening in any way. I think that one of the biggest issues is the script. Now, the script is not a black comedy. You know, it's not. I think it was written to be very straight down the line. However, what we have to remember is that the script was written by Joss Whedon, who I like Joss Whedon's work. I mean, I love Firefly, and interestingly, Alien Resurrection is connected to Firefly, but we'll get to that in a moment. I don't think Joss Whedon is particularly to blame because he wrote a script. Now I have not read it. I don't know what it's like. I don't know if you can hear my neighbours shouting. But the script that he wrote was it didn't have Ripley in it. It wasn't about Ripley. In fact, at one point it was about I believe it was about a cloned Newt character. And not Ripley at all. In fact, I think even before that, there was no sort of female lead like there had been in the previous 3 films. So the studio then said, right, we want to bring Ripley back, because originally Sigourney Weaver said that she wasn't going to do it. She wasn't going to, be part of it. Again, that's why she said, look, after Alien 3, that's it. But she did come back. And one of the reasons she said she came back is because she knew they were talking about making Alien vs Predator. She cared about the franchise very much. She felt that would kill the franchise. So she came back to continue it onwards. And I think that's really an honourable thing to do, but I think perhaps that they should have tried to, waited for maybe a better idea of how to bring Ripley back. I personally think they should just have not brought Ripley back at all and continued on with the Alien series without doing Alien vs Predator, but that's just me. So I think the script, the direction's good, and I think it's just not what's required for an Alien film, and I think it really jars with the subject matter. And I think the script, like I said, the script is actually connected to Firefly, which is a TV series that Joss Whedon then went on to make, because the crew of the Betty were actually were kind of the embryonic form of the crew that would eventually be on Firefly. That's where he took that idea from. So it's quite interesting watching that with that in mind. I tell you what, Alien Resurrection would have been an absolute hoot if it had been the Firefly crew that were running around the ship. That would have been brilliant. But anyway, a very different film again. So it's not that Alien Resurrection is a particularly weak film. It's more just that it was a bad idea, and that's really where the film falls down. I don't think it was a great idea. I don't think men could see it was a great idea, and I think that the problems with the film really stem from the fact that the director as well isn't entirely trying to do his own thing as the previous directors had, and also he, I think, tried to inject humour into the film, which to a level which I think really left the film without the impact that it should have had. There are other criticisms as well, but we'll get into them in the analysis spoiler section of this video. There are some good things in it. I like some of the production design, and like I say, there are some great. When I say great, there are some enjoyable shots that the director and the cinematographer use. But on the whole, there's nothing really that I think it's Roger Ebert that said that the film didn't create a sense of awe in you the way the previous 3 films did. Even though the third film was much maligned, it did have a sense of awe about it in places. And yeah, I don't really think you have that in this film. So anyway, it's interesting to watch. It is worth a watch. I mean, it's not, if it wasn't an Alien film, it would be an interesting sort of black comedy science fiction movie, action movie, right? But because it's an Alien film, it really does fall below the mark that's been set by the other films. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about my analysis of the film, if you can call it that, and there's going to be major spoilers here, so if you haven't watched the film, go away and do so now, and then come back and watch this bit of the video. You have been warned. Okay, so this is probably going to be the shortest analysis section of all of my Alien franchise review videos, and the reason for that is that I don't really get much from this film in terms of metaphor or subtext or any of that. It's all quite blatant, and I just don't think the film is that deep. Maybe I'm missing something, but I just really don't find it, that deep. But obviously the film deals with issues of cloning, what it is to be human. It deals with what it is to be a parent through the relationship that, remember people, major spoilers, through the relationship that Ripley has with the sort of alien-human hybrid that is born towards the end of the film. And, but not just from her character as well, there's the android, is it Call or Cal, I can't remember, that Winona Ryder plays. That character, again, is, you try to deal with the idea of what it is to be human, and this android that's being a little bit too human at one point, and they tried to sort of recall all of them, and a bunch of them have escaped. I think, and she actually has more humanity than anyone else on the ship, which is interesting. There's also some problems, I think, identifying with the people that are running around. The film spends a little bit of time developing the characters to a degree on the Betty, the mercenary ship, and then it just sort of kills off loads of them. So there's not really an emotional investment, really. I mean, it develops them to a degree, and you feel as if these characters are going to be around for a while. And then the film just disregards all of that and picks them off in action sequences without really letting you feel that there's been a great loss at all. And that kind of feels as well like maybe that wasn't the script originally, I don't know, but like, the captain of the Betty gets killed first, and that's just really, really strange because he feels like he's going to be a real main part of the film. So I think that's an issue as well. We don't really identify that way. I mean, I love Ron Perlman, so I like his character, but I think, and you've got, what's his name, Dominic Pignon, is that his name? I think that's his name. It's a great French actor who is in the film, but there's strange things in the film as well, like the fact that someone mentions in fact this was mentioned on the Cinephiles episode where they reviewed the Alien franchise. There's a joke about, I think, Ironside, which is like a television show from the 1970s or 80s, and it's like, well, why would people hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years in the future know about a TV series that not that many people know about now? It's kind of a strange thing. Again, it's part of the whole skewed humour that Jeunet tried to implement in this film, and it just doesn't really work, in my opinion. I think there are a few twists and turns that are interesting. I think them carrying a character with them where they know that the alien's going to burst out is slightly reminiscent of Alien 3, although that it's not going to be a big climax, that it could happen at any time because this character's a sort of secondary character. That was interesting. I think that one of the biggest issues people have with this film is the alien-human hybrid. It does look really, really strange. And when that happened, you really genuinely felt you were no longer watching an alien film, you were watching something else. It obviously had elements of the story of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, and what technology and what human beings have created, and the problem with that. Now, I did actually feel sorry for it, and I actually thought the effects that they used were actually really well done. The design of this creature is actually pretty cool, but it just really felt like it should not have been in an alien film, and it just felt like a step too far. And then you have the ridiculously grotesque death scene of the creature with it screaming, making this noise like a dog, and I know that's supposed to like pull on the heartstrings, but it goes on for ages and it's just really overt and unnecessary. And yeah, so I think that the film has, there are problems within the plot, but also like elements of logic which really I think kind of, I wouldn't say annoy me, but they don't really make sense. Now, for starters, the crew of the Betty managed to smuggle guns onto this, high class, high security military ship in space. I just don't think that's going to happen, and the way that they do it as well just seems pretty lame. There's also another section where one of the characters shoots a bullet, ricochets it off something and then kills someone. You start thinking, wow, I'm really in sort of the wrong franchise here. It's like something RoboCop would do, and I love RoboCop, but this is Aliens, so you start to, the thing that made Aliens and Alien 3 as well so great, but especially the first two films, is that there was a believability about it, and that's what really grabbed the audience. And there's no believability here. It's like watching a comic book, and that's essentially what Alien Resurrection is. It's like watching a comic book version of an Alien film, and you've got these really outrageous moments that just jar with the entire series, with the tone as well of the entire series, and I think as well that one of the biggest problems I have is a logical one, which is that it takes them 200 years to clone the Ripley character. 200 years, when they are really messing around with cloning now, let alone in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years time. And also, so you would think they would have cloning by the time Alien 3 came about, so you think they would have done it right away. Who knows, maybe that's a story they haven't told, maybe it did happen right away. We don't know. I do think the effects and design of the different incarnations of Ripley in the lab, some of them are really imaginative and really well done, and I think the one that's alive, it's you don't really know what you're looking at, and it is really well done, and that is a really highly charged emotional scene, and it's the one point in the film that I think it really works, because when Sigourney Weaver's performance there, when she starts getting really upset, you feel like that's Ripley, that's Ripley of the previous installments. So that's a powerful moment, and I think that did work. So there are things in the film to admire, but yeah, it just really doesn't meld well with the rest of the series, and I think it just has a whole bunch of problems. So I would say check it out, watch it, have a bit of a laugh with it, don't expect anything great, and it is a film that I will watch every now and then, so I do return to it, but it's just nowhere near as good as the first three films. Bizarrely, it's rated higher on many sites than Alien 3, which I think's completely wrong in my opinion. I think Alien 3 is great. It's flawed, but it's great, and the assembly cut's even better. And while Alien 3 is not as good as the other two, I think it's certainly better than Alien Resurrection. But I admire them for at least putting out something that does stand on its own. And lastly, that brings us on to quite an important point when I say that it stands on its own. There's the question of canon, the question of what is part of the official Alien universe and what is not, right? Now, the David Giler, Walter Hill, the producers that were involved with the first three Alien films, and were involved in rewrites as well of Alien and parts of Alien 3 as well, they do not consider the fourth film part of the series, part of the franchise really. And I don't know, it's very difficult to decide whether this is part of the series truly or not. To me, I look on Alien Resurrection the same way I look on Terminator 3. Terminator 3 was kind of an enjoyable action movie. I think they actually did quite well with it, but it's just not. I don't look on it really as canon. Really, I don't. Terminator for me is Terminator and Terminator 2, Judgment Day. That's, those two films tell the story. They came from James Cameron. To me, those are the films. That's the story. And Aliens, I think Aliens Alien 3, those three films tell the story, tell Ripley's story. Even if you don't like the third one, and there are I do have problems with it in terms of, you know, what it does to a lot of the characters from Aliens, I still think that those three films are the franchise. Alien Resurrection kind of feels like somebody else doing an Alien film. Although some people involved with Aliens and Alien 3, for example, like the guys that did the makeup effects and the creature designs and stuff like that, they were involved with Alien Resurrection. It doesn't really feel like a passing on of the baton. It doesn't feel like it's an extension of the franchise. It just feels very different. I think a big part of that is because of the tone of it, because it is there's this sort of skewed humour in the film, which I think jars with the whole piece. So whether you consider it canon or not, that's really down to the viewer. That leads us also on to the Alien vs Predator films, which is what I'm going to do next, although I'm probably just going to do one video which discusses both of those films, because I really can't bring myself to do like a full thing. So anyway, that's really all I've got to say about Alien Resurrection. I actually have talked about it far longer than I thought I would, because I didn't think I'd have that much to say about it. But Alien Resurrection it's a worthwhile film in terms of, you know, if you think of it as a standalone science fiction action adventure movie, then it's a worthwhile film. But in terms of the Alien franchise, it's too different. It strays too far from the source material and too far from the whole aesthetic which has been established by the previous three films. It's too quirky, far too quirky. So check it out. Let me know what you think about it, or if you have watched it, what do you think about it? And I don't know why I pointed at the camera there. I'll tell you this now. Comment down below, let me know what you think about it. And up next, I'll probably do the Alien vs Predator films. I was going to leave it at this, you know, this being the last of my Alien franchise videos, but I will do the Alien vs Predator films. But I might do them in a couple of weeks, and I might do a couple of videos before then, because I'm all aliened out after doing all of this and watching all the films again and all that. But I've really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it too. So I really appreciate anyone that's commented or rated or watched. I really appreciate it, and let me know what you think. All in all, Alien is an incredible series, and I think I will do probably No, I don't know if I'll do an overview of the whole series. I might. I'm arguing with myself on camera. Amazing. Schizophrenia, here I come. So, check out the Alien films. You won't be disappointed. Alien Resurrection, meh. And I think that's all I've got to say. Thanks for watching.